Good evening. There is a lot of animosity going online right now with the pagan community. There is a lot of stress going on because we have like the shooting in Orlando, and in this case I'm talking about the young boy who raped a woman behind an unconscious woman behind a dumpster and only got 6 months for his crime. Ray Bucklund made a comment talking about the people that were wanting to hex the rapist because they felt that he was not being punished enough. And I would like to recite his statement and discuss it. So very sorry to see so many people who call themselves witches talking about hexing people. Just undoing all the work that we pioneers work so hard to do. Witches do not hex people. Do not do negative magic, period. Send out love. Find a positive way to change someone if you really feel that necessary. In quotations. I wouldn't mind betting that these people haven't got the power to hex the skin off a rice pudding anyway. End of quotations. In love and light, Ray Buckland. Wow. Now, if you don't know who Ray Buckland is, Ray Buckland came to the United States from Europe, and he brought over Wicca. He is considered one of the founding fathers of Wicca in the United States. He started his own tradition here in the U.S., and he helped basically launch Wicca today. Now, there are more than just one type of witches. We have our traditional witches, and we have what they call Wiccan witches, and there are so many different forms of witchcraft out there. We cannot just say witches are this one narrow thing. So saying that Wiccan witches need to knock this off is just illogical and poorly thought out. Now, I want to go through this. Witches. Now, I have a history, unfortunately and fortunately, of criticizing people who call themselves witches. I do not believe, personally speaking, that you can just pick up a book or two, read them, and declare yourself a witch. I believe that it takes time to study, to learn how to do some of the basic things, such as casting a circle, ground centering. There is a lot to be learned, and once you've learned those things, yes, you can declare yourself to be a witch. But in my opinion, until you do, you're a wannabe. You are an apprentice. You are in training to become a witch. Okay? But there are a lot of people that have done the training, that have done who's read many books. They have worked with covens. They have sought to be trained by other people. There are people that learn from videos. So to say that they call themselves witches, as Ray Buckland did, is a little bit condescending. Okay, next thing he goes is just undoing all the work that we pioneers work so hard to do. I disagree with that in some ways because, yes, there were a lot of laws that alienated pagans / witches. And there's still a lot of animosity towards pagans / witches. But not all forms of paganism / witchcraft have been this nice, white, fluffy, nice tradition. We have people that do look on what they would call the dark side and work with magic. We have the voodoo, hoodoo, Santeria. We have people that look at things differently. And if you just think about it, Wicca, as they love to say, is a very eclectic, open religion, which means that anybody can follow their own particular path. And so if one person's path kind of goes into the grays and into the shadows, that's their path. They're not the purest, white, positive only people. They do work with negativity. Now, as for myself, I consider myself, if I have to use a color, a gray witch. What that means is that I do try to work with the white. I try to be positive, but sometimes in life you have to get your hands dirty. You have to deal with the negativity. You can't just shun it, ignore it, avoid it. It doesn't work. Sometimes you just got to deal with things and get it resolved. Okay, that's just the way I am, and there are many people who also believe the same way as I do. And, you know, the pioneers, there's a lot of people that were pioneers in paganism here in the United States. And while they worked to get us accepted, they couldn't just make us as plain harmless, worthless, wimpy people. I mean, come on, sometimes we had to fight. Just like the Council of Witches, which hopefully never gets resurrected. That was a fight to describe our principles of belief. And so these are times where we had to stand up. We had to explain to people this is what we are. Okay? Witches do not hex people, do not do negative magic. That is wrong, period. Because witches do hex people. Because, like the gypsy tradition, and so many other traditions, there were times where they had to get mean and nasty, and they did hexes and curses. A lot of these occult shops that are out there, they wouldn't have a business really if there weren't people doing hexes and curses. Sometimes you had to do that. So him saying don't do negative magic is also a matter of perception, because what one person might view as a negative act, another person could see as a positive act. Because let's say I'm trying to protect somebody from some harm, and so I do some form of magic to protect this person here, but the person over here is going to say, well, that's kind of negative because they're helping, in that person's eyes, a bad person. So negative, positive, good and evil are all perceptions. And so Ray's kind of got that all messed up. Next thing he says is send out love. We tried to do the right thing. We tried to make this world a good place. That is at least my mission, and I know that's probably the mission for most people out there, because most people in this world are good people. So, okay, there's something I agree with. Okay, find a positive way to change somebody. Okay, yes. We want to rehabilitate people. We want people to learn from their mistakes, and hopefully they don't do anything stupid like what this guy did, and so that we don't have to worry about other people. But sometimes, and unfortunately this is true, sometimes people have to face the punishment, the consequences for their actions. And so that's what hopefully a lot of these people that are wanting to do the hexes and the curses are working on, a way to punish this person for the crime that he did. And then he goes, if you really feel that necessary. Yes, life requires us to deal with negativity, with bad things, bad events, bad people. And so sometimes we have no choice, okay, the necessity to do what people might call as dark magic or left-handed magic or work in the shadows, however you want to phrase that. Then that quotation part that gets me. I wouldn't mind betting that these people haven't got the power to hex the skin off a rice pudding anyway. Well, if this is true, then that's Buckland's fault. Because since he was one of the pioneers that helped bring Wicca to the United States and help introduce paganism to a lot of people here in the U.S., then it was him. His teachings that taught the other people, that taught everybody else how to do magic and all that. And thus, if we can't hex the skin off a rice pudding, that's part of his foul up. Now, I have a couple books from Buckland, so just one moment. So I have two books by Ray Bucklund. The first one is Scottish Witchcraft, which I thought was an interesting read. It has some interesting information in it. The one thing I don't like about it is the fact that Ray Buckland, the tradition that he started here in the United States was Sax Anglo Wicca, which is one form of Wicca, yes. But then here he is, he's writing a book for Scottish witchcraft, the history and magic of the Picts. Now, the Picts are very much an unknown part. We have bits and pieces. But then again, I have to look at the very bottom little emblem right here. I know you probably don't see it. It's a Llewellyn book. So he was probably paid to write the book. He just didn't have to know it at all. He just had to come up with something. That's my opinion. The other book, of course, is Big Blue. And it's an interesting book. It talks about a lot of different things in here. And so if you are just starting out, this is an excellent book to read. He does not talk about curses or anything like that. But it's one of his books. Sometimes we have to deal with bad things. And so, you know, this is why we do what we do. And have I cursed people? Have I created a hex? And the answer is yes, I have. One of the people that I have a great deal of respect for, they call him Birch, Freak Phil, on YouTube anyway, 1309, Freak Phil 1309 if I remember exactly. But he was talking about when you do it, you gotta be prepared to go all the way, because hexes and curses are intense. You know, it's not something that you do lightly. When I did curses and hexes many, many years ago, you know, I did not know that stuff. Now that I do, I don't do that. So Mr. Buckland then ends it, his little statement, in love and light. He really didn't show much love and not much for light. He was very negative towards the witches in pagan community as a whole. Now I want to talk a little bit about what the people were doing. I saw it also on Facebook, where there were witches out there that wanted to get together nationwide and cast a curse upon the rapist. And I had to tell people that might not be a good idea, because the one thing that I learned about spell casting is you got to make sure that intent is well defined and specified when you do a spell. Because if you can't get the intent, there is ambiguity in magic, and so what you wanted, because you didn't define it right, can go astray and something else could happen. So intent is very important. And so if you have 1,000 witches across the US trying to cast and it's not well defined, something could go wrong. It is my point of view that I do not want the rapist to die in prison. I honestly don't. What he did was savage and he needs to pay for it. My personal opinion is this. I want the rapist to live for 3 more years. I want it where nobody wants anything to do with him. They don't want to touch him. It's just like, get away from us. You make us look bad. Then I want this rapist to be so down on himself that he ends his own life. That's what I want. And then here comes the little magic lesson in here. Words are energy. Words form spells. We call them spells because of spelling, which is taking words and putting them together and forming a pattern. It is a way to focus energy to cast a spell. And so when I say that I want him to live for a few more years and being refused, being neglected by everybody, and then for him to get really stressed out and kill himself, well, that is in a way in visualizing and focusing the energy and sending it out. The intent was, well, it's visioned very well in my head and in my words, but there's still some ambiguity in there. That, of course, is my opinion. So I want to end this video now. Ray Bucklund, I think, just let down the pagan community, because we are not all light and love type people. We are not what so many of the newer Wiccans are referred to as fluff bunnies. That we are not sugar-coated. We're not pure as the white snow. Sometimes we are dark. Sometimes we are mean. Sometimes we're nasty. It's like what I consider my path. I consider myself the warrior witch. Sometimes I have to fight. Sometimes I have to defend. And so I'm not sugar-coated. I'm not white. I'm not fluffy. So everybody take care. Be at peace.